小人物上篮。Are you kidding me？
就是个屁孩呀！
欢迎收听。各位乡亲喜大家就不来贺，欢迎收听小人物上篮。今天是一个很特别的 another 特别的日子，因为自从上一次我们跟那个国皇的教练录音以后，我们得到了非常非常多正面的回馈让我们知道说，嘿，用英文录音做节目并不是这么的困难，然后那也让我们有机会 reach out to more people, expand our scope。因为大家的鼓励，所以我们今天又做了新的尝试，我们要来去再次用英文录音，而且这次我们请到了一个非常非常特别的来宾，是我们的小人物 Henry 介绍给我们的。所以我现在要开始讲英文了。Speaking of expanding our basketball world, really, we have another guest that's been there, put in the hard work, just so his friend can rise from a humble beginning of a college bowler through the summer league, D leagues, and become a 9-year vet in the league and an NBA champion. And even more importantly, he's not only there when his friend is on the rise, he never left for a second when his friend is down and overlooked by the world. And for all our little guys, please, it's my honor to introduce you the most important support, 林书豪背后最重要的推手, Josh Fan. Hi, Josh.
大家好，我叫 Coach Josh.
Hi, Josh. 那我们继续讲中文吧。
不要。
So, hey, your Chinese is awesome. Why can't we carry on in Mandarin?
I want to communicate a lot of specific and detailed things, and it's always best to do it in the native language. And so I just want to make sure I'm communicating to the best of my ability.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for being here, and it's really what an honor. And I mean, just a little bit of your background, your incredible basketball journey, right? You are Mr. Hustle, Jeremy's free trainer in college, right? I think that's the story he was telling. Yeah. You were his free trainer in college when you were at Boston College when he was at Harvard, right?
Yeah.
And essentially, so you were picking up and being the trainer as you learn as you go along, right? And then you were traveling with Jeremy wherever he went, and for that reason you were actually in Taiwan for 9 consecutive years. Obviously you have a huge heart for basketball, and now you're here. You're coming to our show because you're willing and happy to share your experiences with the world. And we know you have a podcast on YouTube called Awaken Training, and that's actually the reason why you are doing it. And I think what's most amazing is that actually in all this process as a full-time trainer, you actually became a lawyer, and we have no idea how you did this. But we'll try to get into as much as possible today, to all the things that you have learned and gained and with the world. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me. In regards to my basketball journey, I played high school basketball in a small town in Maryland. Wasn't ever good enough to play college basketball, but went to Boston College and helped out with the women's basketball team there as a practice player for 4 years. And during my time there, I was kind of always obsessed with the process of training and getting better. Actually, I would argue that I love training more than playing basketball itself.
Oh, wow.
That's probably a big issue because it actually should probably be the inverse. So during my time in college, I had an internship, a strength and conditioning internship in Rockville, Maryland, where I got to work under 2 pretty well-known strength and conditioning coaches who trained a lot of basketball players. So the DC, Maryland, Virginia area on the East Coast of the United States has a lot of well-known basketball players. For instance, Kevin Durant, Steve Francis, Mike Beasley, Ty Lawson. A lot of these guys played, in these Maryland, DC schools. And so that was kind of my start where I got to experience, as an 18, 19-year-old being able to train or at least assist in training these high-level athletes. And, back then there was no YouTube, no Facebook. There was no such thing as a skill development trainer. And so
you're talking about like mid 2000s, right?
Yeah, that was 2004. So 2004.
Right,
so
right.
I think Facebook was maybe inception was 2005 or 2004, and then YouTube might have been shortly after. But
it was still
back
very
then,
early.
Yeah, it was very early, and so there was no such thing as kind of a skill development trainer. And so I just kind of did it for free, like on the side, because I just loved basketball. And the way me and Jeremy met was through a family friend, and I went to one of his games, and we just started talking and starting to train together. And then the first time we ever played one-on-one, I was at my peak, and he was only a freshman at that year, so I'm 2 years older than him. I beat him one-on-one 11-10. But
11-10, yeah, okay.
I've never beaten him again ever. Ever since that first time we played, he never let me win again for the next.
Should have stopped. You should have just stopped right there.
the next 18 years, or not? Yeah, the next 16 years, I never beat him again. And so, back then we always joked around, kind of if he made it to the NBA, whether I would want to kind of be his trainer. During that time, graduating from Boston College, I didn't really have a good trajectory of my life because I didn't really think I could make money doing training. And coming from a very conservative Asian family, from my dad, who's a doctor, there's only doctor, lawyer, or business, and
maybe an engineer if
maybe an engineer. So I wasn't great at math at the time. I didn't take the pre-med prerequisites, and so
bad kid. You're just a bad son.
So
I did too. I went through that road too.
At that point, there was only the law school available, so I took the LSATs, went to law school for 3 years. During my third year of law school was when Jeremy blew up with the Knicks, and Linsanity happened. And when it happened, he asked me if I wanted to come work for him full time, and I said, let me take this bar exam. And let me take this bar exam because I just did 3 years of law school. Let me pass this bar. So I passed the Maryland bar. I handed my mom my board certification pass certificate, and I said, thanks, Mom. I'm gonna go chase my own dreams now. He's gonna pay me a salary, so you can't say anything. So that was that was a trajectory.
So that's when you became a full-time trainer. That's when you became full-time.
Yeah. So, full-time trainer, I think I was 26 at the time. So I'm 36 right now. So it's been about a decade.
So can you actually still practice law in Maryland right now?
Yes, I technically can. I've been paying my board fees, but it's sad because every time I come home, my mom and all her friends, all they ask me is, so are you going to practice law now? And it's kind of insulting, being a trainer for the last 10 years and training Jeremy. My parents and my friends still ask if I'm going to go back to law. I'm like, no, I haven't practiced a day of law. I'm not going into law. I'm never going to use it again. I'm sorry.
It's like Jeremy. People asking Jeremy if he ever going to use his law Harvard degree to do something.
Yeah.
Well, at least you can tell them that your parents can still tell their friends that their son is a lawyer. Certified lawyer, if that makes them proud enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it sounds like you stopped right between college, law school to the so-called full-time trainer, right? And that's got to be like what, 3-4 years in between.
In between what?
In between, you were training with Jeremy to you become a full-time trainer with Jeremy.
Oh yeah. So after I graduated, I took 1 year off. And then 3 years of law school. So Jeremy's 2 years younger than me, though. So he was still in college.
I see.
While I was, in law school. And then I think it was my second year of law school was kind of that year where he was on Golden State and he got cut. And then he was on the Rockets for a little bit, and they cut him on Christmas Day. And then he went to, so there was yeah, he was younger than me, so there was a little bit of a gap. But
Okay. So how did you equip yourself to progress enough to become a full-time trainer? Because obviously you were doing law school.
I was never the smartest kid or the quickest learner, but one of my, I guess, hidden talents or skills is observation.
Okay.
And so I think for me, I'm a very keen observer, and I tend to see and process a lot, and I'm constantly watching and looking for nuances and small details. So I think that with the combination of, I'm not interested in a lot of things. I'm only interested in a very few things. And I only have a very few set of hobbies. But with those hobbies, I tend to go very deep down the rabbit hole and get very obsessive in those hobbies. And so to start, I wasn't the best trainer at the beginning, but I had a lot of, I don't want to say grit, but I had a I'll figure it out attitude. So even though I'm not great right now, I'm going to go figure it out. So whether that was kind of visiting other trainers, watching other trainers, shadowing other trainers, going to other workouts, watching other NBA coaches, sitting on other NBA workouts, just watching, asking questions, being curious. I think, that if there was one thing I regret growing up is not being more curious. I think, in our school system, 小学 or like all these things, everyone just tells you kind of what you need to learn and what you need to do, and you just kind of follow a curriculum. But
Yep.
in this type of skill development training, there is no curriculum, there is no school, right? And to learn, you really have to be curious, and you have to constantly ask why does this work, why doesn't this work, and you have to continue to distill things into principles, right? Everything can be distilled into principles, right? So what I mean by that is, if we're talking about offense, the primary goal of offense is to score, right? That's the objective of offense. Well, how do we score? We have to create space from the defense, right? That's, if we can't create space, then we can't get an open shot, we can't get a layup. Okay, well, how do we create space? We need to create space through misdirection or fakes, right? So crossovers through the legs, creating space. Sometimes we have to hide our intent, right, of what we want to do. The defender thinks we're driving, but then we're shooting. They think we're going to shoot, but then we're driving, right? And it makes it very hard, right? So similarly, on defense, the main principle of defense is to reduce space, to prevent the person from scoring by reducing space through anticipation, right? So if we can distill a sport and reverse engineer it to its most fundamental principles, we can begin to understand what are the skills necessary and how to prepare an athlete adequately for the game of basketball. And so that's kind of where my fascination with it was. And so when you ask me, how did I do it? Just observation, curiosity, and always asking why.
So who was your role model, or the people that you learn from, or you observe and learn from them?
Back then or now?
Through the time. Back then and maybe now.
I'm a firm believer that you can learn something from everyone.
Right.
And that can be even like if a person sucks or is bad, you can learn something from them because you can learn what not to do.
Exactly.
And so, back then there was only one trainer, Gannon Baker. He was like the first Nike trainer. But early on, there was only a few trainers. I think like Michael Lancaster was one of the trainers. But recently, I've tried to be friends with all the trainers, like in the U.S., whether it's Jordan Lawley, DJ Sackman, all these like big time trainers. Me and Jeremy have visited their facilities over the years and gotten to know these trainers a little bit better, like Drew Hanlon, who worked with the New Taipei Kings recently, and I think he's going back to
Right.
Taipei to work with them. So for
Right.
me, it's just again, it goes back to observing like what works, what doesn't work. But more recently, I've been kind of diving more into the literature and research as to how athletes and individuals acquire skill and how they learn. Like, what is the
Mm-hmm.
process behind learning, and how do athletes and how do people actually acquire skills and as fast as possible? And that has been kind of the most um, the where I want to take my own learning and improve my ability is kind of to
Mm-hmm.
really understand the research a little bit better and learn how to help
Mm-hmm.
athletes quicker and faster and better.
Oh, that's interesting.
So is there like a trainer circle? Like are trainers all friendly with each other, and or is like is there
Some are
competition
friendly,
or
but there's
okay?
a lot of there's I would say a lot of them are friendly with each other and and some are closer than others. But in general, it kind of feels to me, it feels, it's a lot of ego. Sometimes it can be a lot of egos and people saying other people's
Yeah,
stuff is trash or not that good or
right,
whatnot, or this person doesn't know what they're doing. So
right.
I'm sure that's in any field.
That happens in any
Yeah,
circle,
In
for
any
sure.
circle, any
Yeah.
sport, any field,
Mm.
like that
Yeah.
guy is
Yeah.
that guy sucks. That guy doesn't know what he's talking about. That guy's an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is
Right.
a little bit of that. And I just try to surround myself with positive people, and I try to always be kind and courteous. And if I can learn, I can learn. If I can't, and if you're not interested in helping, then it's okay. No harm.
Mm-hmm.
And I just move on because I don't really want to be around that negative or toxic
Negative
energy, if
people,
that
right?
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be really, really bad. It sucks the life out of you. But was it hard for you to like? It sounds like you're doing a lot of research on human body, learning process, skill acquisition. Was it hard for you as a lawyer? The way that you think to go from that to picking out these human physiology type of things.
Actually, no, law school was probably the most important educational experience for me because in law school,
Ooh, interesting.
in law
Mm-hmm.
school, yes, there is the law, which is, kind of black and white in certain regards,
Yep.
but in law
Mm-hmm.
school, many of the exams or questions would they give you a fact pattern, or they give you like a fact pattern just means
Mm-hmm.
a long like 3 paragraph situation. And then
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
that 3 paragraph story, they'll ask you some
Mm-hmm.
questions basically. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to give you an example, you would read this long fact pattern about this individual who went into the store, robbed the store, and then he went out and then he stole a car and he did all these crimes. And then, the question at the end would say something like, what is his best argument for being not guilty? And I think as an Asian American where sees like things
Yeah.
very like logical and black and white,
Right.
my brain would just kind of explode. Be like, "Oh, what? That
It's
doesn't
like, how do you get
compute.
out of that?
He's 100% condemned guilty. Like there's no way." Like,
Yeah.
and in law school, it's not about in certain classes, it's about what is the best argument. So this might be a bad situation or a
Mm.
losing case, but it's about what can you argue the best. And
Mm-hmm.
so it teaches you to really, it's not, I know a lot of people who are going to listen to this and be like, see, that's why lawyers are corrupt. uh, but it's learning to understand like how to advocate for yourself, but to use
Uh-huh.
logic to advocate for yourself and what is the most compelling argument. And so for
Right.
anything,
Right.
it was very helpful for me because it taught me to see things from different angles, different 角度, like to see
Mm-hmm.
things and process things like, oh, there's multiple ways
Mm-hmm.
to do a certain skill or argue for a certain task. And I think that was really instrumental in helping me grow as a learner. And like, why do we have like what is the best argument for training this way? Well, is
Right.
this really true? And then like attacking my own arguments. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, today in Jeremy's workout I want to do this drill, this drill, this drill, this drill. And then why?
Mm-hmm.
Defend yourself. Why do you want to do this drill? Like, why do you want to
Mm-hmm.
do this workout? Like, does it fit within
Mm-hmm.
our end goal for the off season? Is it going to further his skill? Is it going to actually make him better? Or is it just like 好看? Like, so for me, it's going to law school helped me learn to always like attack myself and question everything. And I think if you really want to improve or get better, you always have to reflect, iterate, and give yourself feedback, right? I'm always reflecting after every workout, after every game I've watched tournament. I'm always reflecting, okay, what did he do good? What did he do no? What did was our off season appropriately? Was our load appropriately? Was the lift too hard? Was the lift too easy? Did I account for his events that day? Did I account for how many hours he slept? How many weeks are we away from the season? How many weeks in to the in season, in the off season are we? How many times did he train this week already? How many minutes has he been on his feet this week? Oh, did he have a foundation event yesterday where he was on his feet for 2 hours? So, is he stressed out? Is he going through other things off the court that might be stressing him, that might affect his recovery? These are all questions I'm constantly asking myself and are going through my brain every single day after every workout. I watch how he comes into the gym. Is he walking slowly? Is he walking fast? Does he look tired? Like, how did the warm-up go? Did he look a little bit slower in the warm-up or whatnot? What's his attitude like? What is his like? These are all like, so when I talk about observation, these are the things that I'm constantly observing and thinking and processing every day during the off season and every day when I'm with him.
I mean, that sounds very, very tiring, but methodological. I mean, I think that's how people break things down, except, instead of like 5 major areas, you probably break it down to 64 pieces and analyze them out. Does it ever get too overwhelming, or do you think, what people say like over analytical? Like it could just be like a bad night.
Yeah,
but
so
you're like analyzing the heck out of it.
Okay, so we can talk about this maybe in a few different ways, but so even though I am processing all of those things that I just told you, I am not communicating all those things to him. If that makes sense.
That's important, right? Yeah.
I am not trying to overwhelm him. These are all the thoughts that are going on in my head that when I'm watching, and it helps me adjust the workout or adjust the load or the volume or help me think through the plan for the rest of the week. But in regards to him, I'm not really communicating a lot of these things unless I need to communicate these things with him. For instance, hey, I think we're training a little bit too much. I think we need to back off. But in regards to being over analytical, yes, at the end of the day, it's the same thing with when I give him feedback after his games or after pickup or after practice. The feedback is always very simple. It's never overly complicated with a lot of jargon, confusing. It's just it could be just one observation or 2 observations, because at the end of the day, simplicity will kind of always trump, right? If things are type fruits out, right? Like, and there's too many things, no one's gonna be able to remember the key point, right? So exactly. I always try to keep the goal and the primary point, and try to be as clear as possible with him. And I tend to not over analyze or over communicate those things to him.
Right. So then in like a major sense, how do you divide your training? Do you it's obviously, you don't want to get too complicated, but obviously there's going to be like you said, strength conditioning, skill wise, psychological, how, sleep, eat. How would you do that?
Yeah. So the easiest way to maybe explain this is we always have to start with the end in mind. So for instance, if you're in Taipei and you want to drive to Kaohsiung, like you need to press in the destination and where you want to go. And then from there, what is Google Maps going to do? It's going to give you multiple routes of how to get there, right? Maybe what's the quickest way to get there, right? So it's the same thing. Before any off-season starts, we always evaluate how the last season went, what went well, what didn't go well. Let's look at the stats. Let's watch a few key games. I try to watch all of his games and try to watch rewatch all of his possessions before the offseason starts. So I have I watch all his turnovers, all his missed shots, all his made shots. And from there, it's like, okay, where do we want to go for next season? Where do we want to do? What do we want to improve? And it's very important there that we choose I think the biggest mistake that maybe me and Jeremy and I earlier on in his career we would try to be overachievers. And I can show you our offseason goal sheet where there was like 20 offseason goals. It was like become a better shooter, become more shifty, also improve driving to my left, also be a better defender, also shoot better off a pick and roll, also have floaters. It was a list of so many things. And this off season, I think there was 2 things on my list, for Jeremy, because you have to realize, especially at someone as you get older, to acquire new skills or to make changes in someone's game takes an enormous amount of effort because they have done things a certain way for so many years, right? And you're not only adding something to someone's game, you're adding it to Jeremy's game, who's playing against, when he was in the G League, playing against G League players, and the NBA playing against NBA players, and now in the CBA playing against high level players. Like you have to be able to do that new skill at a very high level. And can you accomplish that in only 12 or 16 weeks, right? So you have to be very judicious and wise with what goal you choose. And so to circle back, we always decide what we want to work on. And then from there, it's kind of up to me to devise, okay, we have 12 weeks together. Okay, 12 weeks together. How many workouts do we have a week? Do we have 4 workouts? Do we have 5 workouts? How many times do we want to play? And then I have to think critically, okay, like, if we have 48 workouts together, what can I accomplish with Jeremy in 48 workouts, right?
Right.
And then from there, everything we do in the weight room is to aid him on the court. So the weight room should never detract from him on the court. It should always supplement and enhance, right? And so a lot of guys go to the weight room and they want to look like big chest, work arms, and all this stuff. But then they go onto the court and it doesn't help them at all in their game. So it's very important with what we train in the weight room enhances him on the court, whether that's he can sit lower in a defensive stance, whether he feels better being able to change direction, whether he can stay low, whether he has the ability to have a quicker first step, whether even though he's getting older, can we keep up his vertical jump, maybe not degrading or reducing too much, right? So so it was always complementing with each other. And so that's how we break down kind of like the overall structure. So we'll always decide like, okay, how many times are we playing 5-on-5 this week? This past off season, he played pickup 5-on-5 twice a week, right? And then we probably did maybe 3 skill sessions, and then we did four weight room sessions. And so we're very clear with the schedule up front. And then if anything needs to be changed, we will adapt and change. But that's kind of how we approach the off season.
All right. It sounds fascinating. For our average basketball fan, right? Like we have never done this type of training ever. How difficult, how many shots do people need to put out, or from your experience, ballpark, to go from, let's say, 33% 3-point shooter to become 37%, from like just below average to average and above average? Because this is only 4%, right? Statistically speaking, this is 4 out of 100. It would not even have a significant difference, but we know how difficult and how big of a difference that makes.
So that is like a 12-factor analysis. So what I mean by that is each person, genetic makeup, age, ability to learn, acquire new skills, those are all much more important than a repetition, right? So for instance, if I'm training with Hans right now and you're very mentally focused and you have a family and you're very busy. And so you can only shoot 200 shots, 200 makes with me 3 times a week. but
Okay.
you're very focused. Everything we do is at game speed. And okay, so we end up making 600 shots a week. Okay, then we have Michael on the call. Michael shoots 1,000 shots every single day. But Michael also is checking Instagram in between his workout and is also shooting only at 60%, right?
Okay.
So this is, do you see why this is like a pretty much an impossible question to answer? But I can tell you the best form of practice is not blocked practice. So traditionally, blocked practice is just the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So corner repetition, 3, right? Just shoot it 20,000 times. We know block practice for new basketball players will have rapid gains in performance. So if you suck at basketball and you've never played basketball before, right? And we just have you shoot 1,000 shots in the corner over and over again. Yes, you're going to get a lot better, right?
Right, yeah.
But most people at a certain point, like the block practice actually has very limited transfer over to game. And actually at that point, the best type of practice is random practice, where you have added variability and interleaving different types of skills within the practice. So what do I mean by that? Block practice would be maybe shooting 1,000 makes from the corner, right?
Right.
Random practice might be, I am passing to you at all different heights. I'm passing it to you like high, low, and I'm only letting you do 10 makes. I'm forcing you to maybe turn around 180 degrees, then shoot it. I'm forcing you to run from, the corner, the wing to the corner to shoot the 3. I'm forcing you to backpedal into the corner and then shoot the 3. And actually that type of random practice, differential learning actually has shown to improve skill adaptation and skill acquisition at a much faster rate, right? But we're so fixed into tradition, and we're so fixed with what our coaches tell us, like 一定要 like 每天去 like 投进1000 like 球. It's just so it's almost like a religion that you have to do it this way. But if you look at all of the literature and you look at all the research, like it's not conducive. The best players in the world. So here's the best example. Kyle Korver. Kyle Korver is one of the NBA top shooters. Me and Jeremy went to go work out with Kyle Korver in Santa Barbara. And we went to one of his shooting workouts. This was when Jeremy was on the Charlotte Hornets. And the workout, how many makes do you think Kyle Korver did in his workout?
In one session?
In one session.
Wow. I mean, I don't know. I'd say 500.
Okay. So he did 150 makes. And
wow.
I asked him after, I was like, or maybe
That's
Jeremy
it?
asked him, he's like, why do you only do 150 makes? And he's like, look, I shoot 150 makes at game speed, like even faster than game speed. I shoot all of the shots I'm ever going to get to the game. Pin down, flare, run to the corner, transition threes. I shoot them all at game speed, and I go as hard as I can, and then I get out because I want to keep my body healthy, and that's all I need. And if you go listen to his podcast with him and JJ Redick, arguably the two, really great top shooters of this decade, they talk about how every parent comes up to them and goes, how many shots do my son make a day to become a great shooter like you guys?
Right. Yeah.
And they laugh about it because they're like, we don't shoot thousands of shots anymore. We don't shoot thousands of makes anymore. But we do things at different speeds and different levels of difficulty because we want to continue to challenge ourselves. But if you think about it from a longevity standpoint, you want to stay healthy, right? And it's hard to stay healthy if you're doing 1,000 makes every single day.
Yeah.
You want to train smarter.
Interesting.
You want to train smarter. You want to train smarter, not harder. Well, I'm blank. Smarter, whatever.
I mean, both works. Harder, smarter.
You want to train. Okay, you want to train efficiently.
Okay. Yeah.
So, no, my question is: so people always say, certain players can't make free throws. They should go in the gym and shoot 1,000 free throws a day until they can make it. So you would say that's not the right way to approach
Yeah,
it.
that's actually my question too, because you can imagine that, okay, 3-pointers, elbow jumpers, they are different. There's game time, game situation, all the things. But free throw is actually a little different, right? Because you always have this distance that you can control.
Yeah. So the phrase is work smarter, not harder. But going back to what you're saying is, I want to be clear for people listening, because people are going to be listening and they're going to be like, screw this guy. He's saying don't work hard. He's saying don't get reps. This is everything against Kobe Mamba mentality. This is against Jordan. I'm not saying don't work hard. I'm just saying you can be much more efficient with your workout. Don't go to the court and just say I'm shooting 500 makes because of 500 makes. The quality and the speed and how you challenge yourself in those 500 makes is very radically different from someone who just shoots 500 to make 500 to say Mamba mentality. Okay. So you got to be very clear with that. Back to your free throw question. I know some Taiwan players have been struggling with their free throws, and I very rarely doubt that if you went to their practice right now and you told them to shoot 100 free throws, that they would have a hard time making less than 85.
Right.
Or 90. We have to understand these guys aren't bad shooters. Some of them might just be bad shooters. And yes, the guys who just suck at shooting, they need to go practice. I'm not arguing about that. I'm talking about the other guys who are decent shooters. We have to think about shooting a free throw at practice with no stress, with no environmental stress or same feeling of a game is very, very different than shooting in front of thousands of people with the lights, with pressure, with the game tied, right? So I think challenging yourself, and we can go into variability now, challenging yourself to shoot free throws off of varying circumstances. So whether that's running like 5 up and down sprints and then shooting free throws, whether putting some type of fine on missing free throws at practice. So everybody who misses a free throw at practice it's a 5,000 NT fine. Like, okay, that's a lot of pressure. Or make it 10,000 NT. Like people are going to feel pressure when they shoot free throws, and they're going to feel a sense. So can we do some stress inoculation with the players when they shoot free throws? That to me is much more of a better form of practice than just telling them to go and shoot 1,000 free throws. All of these players, for the most part, who play in P League and these high level leagues in CBA and in NBA, like all of them work hard for the most part. There's some outliers, of course, but no one gets there not working hard or practicing, if that makes sense. So I don't think these Taiwan guys just need to go shoot 10,000. If ever all of them shot 10,000 more, that means it'll increase the free throw. For sure, some of them might need to practice more, but I don't think that is like, what about the psychological pressures, right? Now, everyone in the media, including you guys, are talking about like, what's wrong with the Taiwan free throw guys? They suck. They just need to practice. It's so easy. You get paid this many thousand NT. Why can't you just make a free throw? And now they're thinking about that during the game. Oh, I just got fouled. I'm going to the free throw line. Oh no, Jiza is watching. Like, I missed another free throw. I missed 2 free throws. I went 0 for 6 today. Like that all cascades into psychological pressures, confidence, all those things make a big difference. So I highly doubt it's a practice issue.
Okay. Would you say the same thing about Ben Simmons? Feel free to say no. You don't have
to. Yeah. So, so Ben Simmons, it could be a psychological factor, right? It could be a psychological factor. Some people like their form. So for instance, like Tim Tebow, the football player, like some people, the way they learn to shoot is just so ingrained to them. Like it's really, really, really hard to change their shooting form. And imagine someone who gets to the NBA has shot a certain way for maybe they've made 200,000 shots, right? How many thousands of shots do you have to go to undo that type of shooting form, right? So
exactly,
there's a lot of factors involved for that.
So I think that brings down the question of 2 aspects of shooting, like you could say, right? One is mental, and of course, like you say, you can inoculate stress situations to help in other ways. But then there could be a point where you just have to change the mechanics and shooting mechanics, and we know Jeremy did that too, right? I remember he was went through some slumps because of the change in his form. So and like in LA, when Lonzo Ball was playing at UCLA, like all the parks, you could see little kids shooting from the shoulder, and he changed his form. Kemba Walker changed his form, and is it obviously it's hard, but how hard is it for you, especially for like dealing with players that shot one way growing up, and now you have to change that?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, and you always have to ask yourself fundamentally why you want to change your shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, everyone talks about fundamentals and perfect shot, but if you look at the greatest shooters, then how come if we took Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, JJ Redick, Steph Curry, and we did some type of some type of analytics where we looked at exactly how they shoot, the angle they shoot, I guarantee, or we like made them black and white and you couldn't see their faces, but there was just like a figure. I guarantee you all of you guys would be able to say like, oh, that's Ray Allen. That's Steph Curry. That's JJ Redick.
Right.
And what I'm saying is they're all elite shooters, right? But how come they don't all shoot the same?
Right.
So there's not one solution to doing it, but there's some prerequisites. And the prerequisite is the ball has to go straight. And the ball has to go in. And the ball probably has to be at a certain angle, whether it's like 46 to 48 degrees. It has to be at a certain, it doesn't have to be there, but I'm saying like within a range, it's probably all going to fall. So
optimize, right? You can optimize. Yep.
So with Jeremy, okay, so what is a skilled action? What is skill? A skill is something that can be done consistently, right? So can we repeat the result? Can it be done efficiently? So with the least amount of energy expenditure. So can we keep doing it without getting tired, right? And the last component is it adaptable? Can we use that shot in multiple scenarios, whether it's from a logo shot, whether it's elbow three, whether it's pull up, mid-range, like do you have an adaptable shot that can change to any situation? So Steph Curry would be an example. If you watch Steph Curry warm up before any game, he can hit every single shot, right? He shoots it like 1,000 degrees into the air and floats it in. He shoots it from all different kinds of angles. He shoots it off his right foot. He shoots it off his left foot. And so back to your question, what I was trying to say is that the reason we decided to change Jeremy's shot was because we felt like it was inefficient. It took too much energy. And for Jeremy to do 500 makes took an incredible amount of energy because the distance from where he caught the ball, dipped down, and brought it up to above his head was an extreme amount of distance. So it required a lot of energy, and he jumped a lot higher, right? So we deemed if you want to play long time in the NBA or extend your career, this takes too much energy. We need to make you a more efficient player. And that the easiest change would be to lower his release height, right? There's a trade-off though. Derek Fisher is very hard to block, right? Because his release height is a lot higher, but the trade-off is his shot's a little bit slower, right? So by reducing Jeremy's release height of his shot, that means we had to make it a little bit quicker as well. Otherwise, it's more susceptible to getting blocked, right? So this probably took us maybe, I want to say 3 to 4 off seasons to really change his shot. So that's, 3 blocks of 3.5 to 4 months of really focusing on changing his form and doing it in small, having small goals for him. Like, okay, we're only going to lower it 1 inch. We're going to only change it like by this much. Let's see if we can make this change. And back to I know you have a question with, Jeremy on the Raptors, but I think during that time, he had I believe he had an elbow spur in his shooting arm, and that was affecting his shot mechanics because his elbow could not really extend correctly. And so I think a lot of people don't really realize that it wasn't really some of it probably was psychological, but there was also a physical limitation as well during that period of time.
I see. Well, at that time, we all thought he was just in a slump. And that's all he was sharing on his Instagram as well. He was like, I'm in one of the worst slumps ever. And we were praying for him and all those things. So I'm okay. I didn't know about the Spurs, but every player goes through slumps as well.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Do you like Jeff would say like just shoot more? You know, what would you say?
Who would say just shoot more?
Foo.
No, I don't say that.
No, you say just keep shooting until you make them.
Oh, no. I just said keep shooting to shoot. You got to keep shooting to shoot out of the slump. That's how I say it.
Yeah. That's what shoot more means.
So this is a very challenging question too, because you have to consider in the context of what your role and who you are on the team, right?
Right.
If you're James Harden and you go 0 for 19, they'll say keep shooting.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if you're the 7th man or 8th man on the bench, you know, a big thing like I remember when Jeremy, you know, early on in his career with when he was on the Rockets, like if he wasn't starting off really hot, like I noticed that he would get a little bit less playing time versus like if he made his first 2 or 3 shots, I think they were like, oh, he's hot today, let's play him a little bit more.
Right.
So there is that aspect of
Kevin McHale.
I didn't say any names.
It's okay. I can own that.
But so back to your question, I would say the most important thing is to go back to, and this is going to sound a little bit woo-woo, but you have to go back to your identity, right? If you say, do you think JJ Redick is, JJ Redick knows he's a shooter. He believes he's a good shooter. He's a great shooter. I am a shooter. I am a shooter. I am a shooter. Oh, I missed 3? Doesn't matter. I average 50%. If I miss 3, my thought process is I'm going to make the next 3. Right. So I think fostering that type of mindset or taidu, like I'm a shooter. Like I'm a great shooter. I'm the best shooter on this court. To me, that at that point, if you're in the season, you're not going to make many technical changes in your game. There's no time, right? There's no time to really like practice, and you're playing against the best players in the NBA. Like you're not going to be able to make a change and then just do it against like LeBron the next night. So at that point, you have to kind of just roll with you know, who you are as a player, trust what you did in the offseason, and make a lot of the changes that are going to be tactical changes, like basketball IQ changes, positioning changes, but also recognizing like, oh, you had an opportunity to shoot here, and just constantly like believing yourself. I truly believe the best athletes in any sport, tennis, table tennis, swimming, they all have a mindset of self-belief in their self. Like there's confidence. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what happened. I'm still confident in my own abilities. And so I think that is a little bit harder for Asians to have that type of, what is self-confidence in Chinese? 自信.
自信. Yeah, 自信.
Oh, not bad. Having this type of this like confidence, self-confidence, right? You see it, right? You see it in some of the P League players. Like they're just like confident and they just believe in themselves. It doesn't matter if they miss the first 10 shots. They're like, I'm beast. I'm going to make the next shots. And so, you know, to your question, yes, maybe there are some technical issues. Maybe you need to go practice, but I don't really think that is the fundamental issue. And that's hard for people to hear because they're like, oh, I want an answer. I want a formula to go correct it. And it's not that easy. If it was that easy, then everybody would be able to correct it right away.
It's hard. Yeah. So, I mean, this is very philosophical, but, you know, and I played tennis all my life, and we watch professional tennis players going through slumps as well. It could be as short as within a game, or it could be within a set, or it could be a match, or even like 2 months of slumps. And so you could say, you're implying, I'm not saying you're implying, but you're saying like, to beat the slumps, you have to have confidence in yourself. But how do you explain the phenomenon of going through a slump? You know, is this because it can't be all psychological, right? It can't be. Otherwise, I mean, Klay Thompson always starts the season in his slump, and then he shoots his way out of it. Or you would say like the cockiest person on the court would never have slumps, but obviously the world too. How do you explain in your ways of interpretation?
Yeah, so I think, as regular general population individuals, we don't see a lot of behind the scenes, right? So,
Right.
for instance, I think Damian Lillard, either last season or the year before, had 5 deaths in his family. He basically found his cousin, who was his personal chef, dead in his own apartment. 2 of his cousins in Oakland were killed, and I think his aunt died of COVID, all in one season, right? So, what I'm saying is, you don't always know what's going on behind the scenes in terms of what's happening, right? Not how one athlete handles stress is not going to be the same with someone else, right? They could be going through a divorce. They could be having family issues. Like, these are all things like you and I do not account for. Are you on Roger Federer's family calls and are you with his business manager, like figuring out like what else he's going on? So I think people don't realize the outside pressures. Like, all of us just think, oh, who cares? LeBron James getting paid this much money. Like, I don't care if he has all this stuff, but those things all affect us. They're all humans and athletes. And so I think that could be, one reason. I do think the psychological portion could be another issue. It could be a physical issue. So what I mean by that is like, everyone's body starts to break down, or some people have certain injuries that cause a cascade of, for instance, if Nadal or Federer like sprains their left ankle, that affects the entire chain. That affects up the chain, up to his hip, up to his all these fascial slings, right? It might affect his entire way he swings his racket just from an ankle sprain, right? So again, I hate to cop out, but all of these questions are just so multifactorial. But I'm trying to, at least being on Jeremy's end, shed light to all of the things that people on the outside might not be fully considering.
Right. No, that's true. I guess, you pointed out things I would never thought of, but definitely true. The other thing that I'm always curious about is basketball IQ, or as Coach Ryan would say, feel for the game. Can you train that? Can you teach that? Because a lot of time we feel like, players have high IQ and certain players don't, and feel like, oh, if he just knows how to play the right way, he would have been good in all the things. Can you teach that, or how come these things still happen?
Yeah. So every sport has 4 important factors that are all just as important, and some would argue that there's a 5th, right? So the first factor or coactive is technical, 技术, your ability. So in basketball, your ability to shoot, crossover, behind the back, whatever your moves. Then there's tactical, understanding the X's and O's, positioning, spacing, just making decisions faster, making better reads. Then there's physical, the physical body, how tall you are, how fast you are, how high you can jump. And then psychological, right? How tough, how much can you handle pressure, right? We know all those guys who are like really, really good. And then when pressure comes, they like always fail or always smoke the shot. And then the 5th coactive is cultural. Like, what is the team culture, right? Because you could have all these things, but coach hates you and doesn't want to let you play, or coach doesn't believe in you, or coach puts rules on you, then it's going to affect all those things, right? So back to your question, which is the tactical element of basketball IQ. Yes, I definitely think this is teachable, and this is where I needed to experience the most growth, and this is where NBA coaches come in, because they're able to break down every single possession and spacing and exactly where you need to be and what you not where you should be. And so first you need to understand it from a theory standpoint. Like, okay, what are we trying to accomplish? So for instance, let's talk about corner threes, right? It makes a very big difference if the 2 guard runs all the way to the deep corner versus 2 feet from the deep corner. Why does that matter? Because if he's all the way in the deep corner, then the help defender has to be 1 step closer to him, right? Which would affect the pick and roll situation, because that means in theory, he's closer to the pick and roll and can play help defense. If the corner person is just 2 feet up, well, guess what? That defender can be 2 feet up as well, which means there's less space for the point guard or offensive person to operate. And so what I'm saying is those things can be kind of changed
Right.
through pointing out and observation. Now, what I think you're alluding to is the more deeper question, which is how can we teach players to make better reads or just be better basketball players, like more Steve Nash like. And this is we haven't chatted about this, but I think this is the fundamental issue with skill development training in today's, not with everybody, but the general trend of skill development training is teach them a lot of moves, teach them a lot of different skills, do moves against a lot of cones, do different types of footwork, different types of finishes, which is all important, right? Like I said, if you're a beginner, you need to do block. You need to do some form of block practice because you don't know any better. But, for instance, what I mean is like, you can't just step on the tennis court and I give you a tennis racket and be like, okay, Josh said block practice sucks. So I'm not going to practice swinging a tennis racket. That doesn't work.
Right.
So going back to your IQ question is, almost every practice, every skill session that I had with Jeremy this offseason involves decision-making, making reads.
Okay.
You have to teach the players to make reads and invite affordances. Affordances means opportunities for action. He needs to be able to make the correct read. And so my job as a skill development coach or a trainer is to set up, well, first enhance a skill, obviously. And back to what I was saying before, every skill needs to be consistent, efficient, and adaptable, right? So I'm always trying to train Jeremy to be more consistent, more efficient, and more adaptable. But to your IQ question, I need to constantly put him in those scenarios where he has to make those reads. Okay, so for instance, Jeremy likes to what? Dong Tai, right? Pick and roll.
Yep. Pick and roll. Yep.
So I can do a small-sided game with Jeremy on a side pick and roll with 3 defenders, and we can do many, many reps of that, but that gives him all opportunities to continue to make reads, make decisions that he's going to see on the court. And when he makes bad decisions or turns the ball over, those are all very important pieces of information as to allow him to see like, okay, I can't do this move when there's 2 defenders stacked on this side or when the help defender is here. Okay, this much spacing means I can shoot the 3. Okay, if he's up, that means I can do the drive. So we have to, the reason you might see some kids who are like, dude, this guy has just bad IQ. Well, maybe he hasn't been trained appropriately. And I'm not saying everybody can be trained to have like the same level of IQ, but I do think a great deal of it comes from training. And I just think we haven't maybe per se upgraded our training methods to help raise the overall IQ.
That's good to know, because it's in the past we was like, yes, no, I mean, you can, of course you can, no, you cannot, otherwise, but I think you being methodological, providing means of helping players develop that instinct, that read, that possibility. I mean, making the right reads, obviously, and creating scenarios where their body in some way and their minds would know what is going to happen on the court, and their mind would say like, hey, this happened before, I know how to break this. That would help a lot.
So my goal when I train Jeremy is not to always give him the solution or the correct answer, because there's not a per se always correct answer. Each individual is it's kind of like if you go to the golf course, it doesn't matter if you played golf a million times. You could play the same golf course 1,000 times. You'll never hit the ball exactly the same every single time. The spacing, the angle, it's on the grass height, the clouds that day, the sun that day. You could play that course 1,000 times and probably never hit the same ball exactly the same. And so who is a coach to say, you need to hit it exactly like this? And I think with basketball trainers, we tell people like, oh, go to this cone, do this move, go to this cone, do this move. You're basically doing choreographed dancing, if that makes sense. We're doing a ballet but that's not how sport works. Sport is all based on perceiving the defenders and how much spacing is, and then acting, reacting to what the defender gives you, right? So this defender might be 6'7", this defender might be 6'5", right? So for me, my goal isn't to tell Jeremy, this is what you should do. My goal is to, in our training, put him in those scenarios where he is able to self-organize and find the most optimal solution. And he will realize if the solution is not optimal, if he keeps getting blocked or the ball keeps getting stolen, right? Like it's very obvious that solution is not the most optimal solution for him in that scenario, right? So I use constraints. So constraints are just, certain parameters that Jeremy maybe has to be on the left side of the court, or the defender has to be here, but it's going to be something similar to he would see in a game. And I want him to explore what he would do if the defender cuts him off there. Like, do you want to keep driving? Do you want to retreat? Are you going to step back? Are you going to cross over? And that's the best way to learn, is to allow the athlete to self-organize and come up with his own solution, because that's what's going to happen in real time. No player is going to be like, oh, 我忘记那个我教练教我那个动作是什么. Like, let me think about that move I'm going to do right now. Right? No, you don't have time. You have to react, right?
Right.
And and again, I'm not trashing cones. I'm saying there's a time and place. So again, if you're trying to teach someone a certain move and he needs to do some block practice, a cone is helpful. I use cones too. But what I'm saying is like that should only be probably like level 1. That should only be like the very intro part of training. Like, our training needs to be, I don't want to say complex, but it needs to be more dynamic, I guess.
Right.
And have players continue to make decisions and move at speeds that are going to be game-like. So for instance, this offseason, one of the guys who helped us out was 7-foot center, right? Like, that allows Jeremy to get a look of someone who's very tall. And of course he's older, he can't move like an NBA 7-footer, but it's better than nothing. It's better than me holding a stick.
Right.
And then, I had another guy who helped us, who's like Hao Zhuang, he's like built he's a basketball player, but he's built like a football player. And I brought him in to like, 故意一直撞 Jeremy, right? Because in the CBA, like, they're going to be very physical and they're going to want to like hit him and push him and that kind of stuff. So I want him to feel that similar type of situation. It doesn't always have to be exact. So the important nuance and caveat people who are listening, I hope they can hear, is I'm not advocating that every single practice looks exactly 100% like a game.
Right.
But on the other end, there needs to be some elements of that. And you can microdose it. You can implement smaller elements of it, maybe like only 10 minutes of it, because again, we're 11 weeks out of the season. I don't need to be banging up Jeremy 11 weeks out, So context matters. And that's why when you were like, oh, don't overanalyze. Well, I'm not overanalyzing. I'm just properly analyzing the important factors.
I mean, in some way it goes back to how you say shooting in various ways, in a myriad of ways of shooting, teaching the game, creating different scenarios of reading the defense or offense. And so the body and the mind is constantly having to think and read and do things in order to achieve something, just like during the games. That would be better than, I'd say, playing against the cones and doing exactly the same thing over and over again to grow it into the system. Because that was the, like in the past, that's like you practice this move, 20 times. So it's in your system, right? But now you're saying in addition to that, you also need to create scenarios where people, where the players can feel the situation and read, and so the system is even more stimulated in some way.
Yeah, I mean, you see it all the time where players are very skilled, and then they're just making like all kinds of weird decisions in the game. Like they're super open, and then they don't shoot it, and the guy's closing it, and then they do something weird, and then they turn it over. You're just like, everyone who's watching it at home is like, shoot it! Why didn't you shoot it? Why didn't you shoot it? Right? It's so obvious to the person watching, but if that person isn't used to making decisions in games, like it's going to be very challenging. And in regards to tennis, like what you talked about is like, in regards to my style of coaching is, if you've ever read the book Inner Game of Tennis, it actually falls in line with the research of basically, as coaches, sometimes it's better for us to give external cues instead of internal cues. So external cues would be like, hey, hit the tennis ball to the baseline. A internal cue would be like, hey, make sure you snap your wrist and twist your trunk when you are hitting the ball, right? And research has shown that external cues are of higher accuracy and better cues because you're able to, it's more of, you're not consciously thinking, right? Like if you play golf, if you're consciously thinking, oh, hit the ball, like you become very tight, right? And if you're in tennis and you're like, oh, coach said,
my wrist,
yeah, let me snap
knees.
it, my knees, like bend knees, like you can't focus. But if I just tell you, hey, Hans, hit it to the baseline, your body just self-organizes and does what it thinks it needs to do to hit it to the baseline. And so with Jeremy, like it's not, I've had a change in philosophy, whereas before I would be like, your knees, like earlier, quicker release, like da-da-da-da. I'd give him like, there was like 8 or 9 cues that I would give him. And now, another easier cue I use is like back rim, hit the back rim, hit the back rim, hit the back rim. And if I tell him to hit the back rim and he's being short, he has to change something to hit the back rim. But I don't need to tell him, hey, it's your ankles. Hey, it's your wrist. Hey, you need to jump more forward. He needs to self-organize and figure it out. Like go for back rim. And that's an important thing with coaching is, I think as coaches, we think we need to always be cueing people, always be correcting, because people pay us money and we have to make them feel like they got value. So we have to correct 1,000 things. But there's better ways to do that and more effective ways that I think that can facilitate better learning.
More doesn't mean more.
Yeah, like so for instance, like one cue might not mean that language is very important, right? So if I'm like pull your racket, swing further back, or actually that's not a good cue, but like rotate more. Well, how much more should I rotate? Like, pull your racket back further. Okay, well, how much further? Like 2 inches. Like, okay, how much is 2 inches? Are you able to measure 2 inches? Are we able to stop and measure the 2 inches? I don't know. So it's very hard to focus on those internal cues, and they don't mean the same thing to everybody, right? So language is very important. So it's very easy. It's a lot easier to give them these external cues and factors.
Yeah. Well, that was very, very fascinating. And I could keep going, but I think, our audience is in Asia, mostly in Asia, and we love to talk about basketball in Asia. But before we get there, we know you and Jeremy went training with Kobe. And I know you talked about this on your show, but not everyone watched your show yet. So can you just share that experience? What's it like to train with Kobe?
Yeah, so Kobe did a lot of block practice, but I will say the difference in Kobe's
was it 4 in the morning? Was it 4 in the morning?
No, it was 8 o'clock. But this is when Kobe was a lot older. So I'm sure when Kobe was younger, he did a lot more psycho stuff. So first, we always made sure we got to the gym before Kobe, which we did. We always arrived before. And then the second thing we committed to is that we're going to leave later than Kobe. Right. In a workout. So we were successful in both of those categories, but That doesn't mean anything. That's just a funny side story. I don't think that I don't feel that doesn't mean anything.
Sure.
I will say what Taiwanese basketball players, what anybody listen to this podcast right now can learn from what I could share from what I personally learned from that Kobe's workout is the importance of intentionality and focus in whatever you're doing. There is
say that in Chinese. Say that in Chinese. No, I don't even know. That's why I said I don't even know how to say that in Chinese.
好专注，好专注今天的目标 or 今天的技术. I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know either. Please. Intentionality.
Intentionality. And what I mean by that was like, and then presence. So what does every, after you guys get off the tennis court or after anybody gets off the basketball court, what does everyone do first once they get off the court?
I don't know, take a shower.
Water break?
Water break. What do you usually pick up? Your phone, right?
Yeah, okay.
Everyone picks up their phone. Everyone starts texting. Everyone says,
we're too old school for that. Keep going.
We're too old for that. Yeah.
What I saw from Kobe was just a singular focus as to the workout. As in every possession, he treated every possession like it was the only possession.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like 10 reps to him was like 10 real game reps. The way he was looking, the way his eyes, the move, you could almost see him imagining where the help defense was coming, where like he was imagining himself on an NBA court. And I think that's where the value of his training was. He was so intentional and he was so present with everything, like his footwork, where the ball was releasing, how much he rotated his shoulder, the way he pivoted, the way he faded away, the way he landed. I don't know that I didn't talk to him and ask him, hey, Kobe, what were you thinking? But this was just my observation with him for an entire week. And I think a lot of players, they go and they think they're working hard and they think they're focused, but their mind is all over the place. They take off a couple reps. They are just like, oh, I think that was good for today. They kind of go 80% speed. This is the stuff that adds up. And if you can learn this type of trait earlier on when you're younger and you do it year after year, season after season, if you're comparing yourself to another player, like 4 seasons later, you're going to be so far beyond and so much better than that player 4 years from now. And then 8 years and then 10 years. Like, it just cascades, and that's what the difference is like you see all the time, like, oh, these 2 kids when they were 14, they were about the same, right? And then now it's like this kid is a CBA caliber all-star or, you know, killing it in the P League, and the other guy didn't even make it to any of the leagues. And this is where it starts, like every single rep, right? And having an intentionality and purpose, right? He wasn't mindlessly shooting X shots. He knew why he was shooting the shots, right? And that's very important for today's day and age. Is a lot of kids, they'll go on Instagram, they'll go on YouTube, they'll watch an NBA player, and they'll just go to the court and they'll just replicate the moves.
Do the same thing, right? Yeah.
They think it's cool and they think it's diao or whatever, and they want to like do stuff at like, you know, at the court, and they just play 3-on-3 and they have no context as to why that move works, right? Or why they should be doing it or what the setup was. So I think that's probably the biggest thing I kind of gained from.
I mean, you're saying that he did block training, but in his mind, he was probably creating all kinds of scenario. He was already going through, you know, reading the plays and
yeah, so
beating his imaginary defenders.
So I wouldn't really call it. Let's just call it effective training.
It goes back to that. Yeah. So I think you allude that to the players in Asia, training in Asia. I mean, you've been to Taiwan 9 straight years. What was your observation on basketball in Asia? Taiwan and Asia in general, the places.
I don't think work ethic is an issue. I think those players work so hard and they train so hard. I don't think work ethic is an issue. You know, a lot of these coaches have been going to Europe and the US and Taiwan and China. They always bring the best talent over. Well, not the they bring over a lot of talent to help them. And but you know, I think maybe, in my opinion, the missing gap is like just teaching these players to be adaptable and teaching them to think, to be able to problem solve, right? Like on the court, like your coach can't be with you on the court. You know what I mean? Like your coach can't tell you exactly what to do in this scenario. And so I think this next generation, like in terms of the physical attributes, I think a lot of these kids are physically gifted to play. They can play in the NBA. They're just as fit. They're more physically gifted than Jeremy is. I've seen so many guards in Asia that are, you know, 6'4", 6'5", that can jump higher than Jeremy, can like do windmills, can do all kinds of crazy athleticism. But that's not. If you don't know, again, that's why I told you what the 4 coactives are. If you don't know the tactical portion, right? If you don't have the basketball IQ, if you don't have the psychological ability to withstand the pressures, then you're probably not going to make it either, right? So it's all of those factors are very important. So I mean, in terms of observation, I think obviously in Taiwan they love basketball, they eat and breathe basketball. I do notice that most people in Taiwan like to play 3-on-3, which is not bad. That's small-sided basketball, but I think, you know, 3-on-3 and 5-on-5 isn't exactly the same, right? Spacing is going to be different. Full court running up and down is going to be very different. But I don't ever think I think I've only played one 5-on-5 game in Taiwan, like at the outdoor courts. It's always 3-on-3, and so I think that's kind of my general observation.
Well, you mentioned adaptable, and you mentioned the 4 corners. Can you be more specific with the adaptables? What do you see that needs to how does a player become more adaptable to sort of get over the hump of, let's say, overcoming whatever gap that was there?
Well, it's very hard. It's challenging because say you're labeled a shooter from a very young age. They just say, you're just a shooter. We're just going to set you up. You stand in the corner, the point guard will do all the moves. We pass to you in the corner and you shoot a 3. So it's very hard for that player to become adaptable because he has a role. And I'm not saying like he needs to become a point guard, right? But in regards to adaptability, like it definitely stems from the culture with us labeling players as like, oh, you're a big man. Oh, you're a shooter, or you're only this. How come in the US or like in Europe now, like you have all these big men who are like 6'11", 7'1", 7'2", but they can handle the ball now and shoot, right? If they were always labeled like you're just a big man, they would have never developed any of those other skills, right? So I think it's from a young age of not. I think it starts from a young age of not pigeonholing players to say like you can only be this. And really focusing on general development. Like every it's positionless basketball right now, right? Everyone can shoot. Everyone can handle the basketball, right? But that's where we need to adapt to and start training kids from a young age. Like, oh, our centers, like our big kids, like, oh, we should teach them how to dribble too. Like our guards, like, oh, we should teach them post moves too. They should know some of this as well. Oh, everyone should know how to shoot. It's important. Everyone should be able to shoot, you know, threes or whatnot. So I do think it stems from, you know, how we train players and the labels we give them from a very young age.
Okay. But I mean, it sounds like you think that basketball training in Taiwan it's presetting players in a certain role too early in their career, and that's the reason why they can't succeed in international competition.
I can't say okay. I need to caveat this with I don't live in Taiwan. I don't live in China. I didn't grow up in the CBA farm circle. I didn't grow up watching HBL basketball or so I'm just an outsider. So
right,
for everyone listening to this podcast who's getting all heated and ready to curse me out and say like, I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, to a certain degree, you're right. I don't
put you
know.
on the spot. I give you that. I'm sorry.
I don't know what I'm talking about. So I don't know. I know when I was an assistant coach for the Beijing Ducks, I saw players mentally pigeonhole themselves into those positions. Like,
I see.
Coach doesn't want me to dribble the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Coach only wants me. Coach said I can only take 2 dribbles. Coach said I can only shoot 3s. If I try to do anything else, I'm going to get pulled out. So I have seen that, not per se on Beijing, but I have heard stories of other teams where coaches have rules for their players, like,
right.
Like, don't do beyond this. And of course, if you're a better player, you can do whatever the heck you want. If you're an import, you can even do more, right? Like, there's not, guidelines for every player. So that's all I'm saying is yeah.
No, I think I get your point. I mean, I think I can understand from both sides, right? I mean, you want players to play a role as a coach, right? As a team together, you make sacrifice, and then you can win together. But as a player, you don't want to you don't want to limit yourself to a certain mold and get stuck there. Continue to develop yourself no matter what. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like again, let's be very clear with what I'm saying. I'm not saying right now the guy who is 29 years old and is a P League and is a corner spot up shooter. I'm not saying, oh, that player needs to work on his ball handling. And I'm not saying he can't. He can if he wants to. But I'm not saying you're exactly right. For team basketball to work, to win any type of championship, every player has to play a role.
Right.
So that is very different, though. We're in a team setting, and we've decided, players play certain roles. Like Draymond Green's goal is not to score 30 points a game. Like everybody understands that. But what I'm more fundamentally talking from a younger age of youth development in basketball. Okay. Right. Yeah. So that's what I mean. From a younger age, we need to equip players to be able to do all types of skill, in my opinion. But like you said, if we're in the P League finals, like people should not be like, oh, I need to be adaptable. Let me try this spin move I've never done before. Like I'm not saying that. So please, whoever's listening to this, don't take this out of context.
We're definitely cutting like 30 seconds out of this and play it 5,000 times on our show. No, I think this is great. I mean, I know it's a hard question, and people may get offended, but I always believe in hard truth, because I mean, people need to pull things out.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the answer. That's just a one person observation, and I could be totally wrong. Until I go to Taiwan and live there and train there much longer, I don't really think, respectfully, my opinion should hold that much weight.
Yeah, but I mean, be adaptable is always a good thing. We saw in the NBA, right? I mean, the big centers, the bigs going through where protect the paint and grab rebounds to go to the threes and shoot corners, and the ones that didn't adapt got eliminated, and the ones that are still playing for the reason that they adapt, right?
Yeah, and it's same with Jeremy. If Jeremy's game was the same as 6 years ago, he wouldn't be even playing anymore, right? Every year we've had to adapt. We had to change his shooting form. We had to add floaters into his game. We had to work on his jiu-jitsu. Like, we had to work on all kinds of things. We had to work on his left hand. We had to work on all these things to continue to evolve his game and continue to be adaptable. Otherwise, he might not be still playing anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for your take. But in all honesty, I really, really, really appreciate you sharing all the things that you've learned and your observation. And I know you created the podcast Awaken Training because you have so much to share, and you have a vision for what you would do for basketball in the future. So let's just say your mission statement. Would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, my mission statement is, I would love to take the knowledge and observations I've acquired while working with Jeremy Lin since, he's been 18 years old, and be able to take this knowledge and be able to pass it on to the next generation of coaches, skill development coaches, as well as players. And I really just want to help myself when I was 18, because I didn't have anyone. I didn't have any mentors.
Right.
I didn't have books. There was no YouTube. There was nothing. It was just myself. And there was nobody I could tweet. There's nobody I could DM on IG and ask for help at this time. And so I just want to be the help that I needed when I was 18 years old for some kid or some coach or some skill development trainer in Taiwan, China, Asia, wherever, Korea. Like if they can be inspired and I can help reduce the length of their journey and help them learn faster. I want people to be way better than me at I want people to be as good as I am now when they're like 23, because that would just help the game of basketball and help produce better players. That's all I care about. I'm a lot older now. I'm 36. My playing career is over, and I'm not trying to make any league. And, Jeremy at some point, will have to retire, because everybody retires at some point. And my focus is just really being able to pass on that knowledge and help those who want to be helped.
Yeah. I mean, I got into sports medicine because I got injured, and I got injured because there's a saying in rowing that pain is weakness leaving your body, so I just kept pushing through when I was having this herniated disc in my back, and I had no idea, and nobody said a thing, and it just got worse and it got worse, and I got into sports medicine in med school because of that. And then I saw how hard the Taiwanese players were training, and I felt like, man, these kids were doing some almost borderline unhealthy things to their body, and they put in so hard. They don't deserve to have this, capped ceiling in some way, because for all the things I put in. And so I understand your sentiments, and obviously your knowledge, your experience is precious. Not everyone's gone through that from college through an NBA career. And thank you so much for sharing all these things with us.
Yeah.
Are you going to continue up to, I suppose, right, Awaken training? And
yeah, so
yeah.
I'm really I'm trying to make it out to Taiwan at some point, because Taiwan obviously has a special place in my heart. The people of Taiwan have always been good to me, and I grew up. My dad is a Kejader, and my mom is from Taichung, and so I have special memories from there, and so I do want to make it back there and help whoever's interested in learning and learning from other coaches from out there. I'm not saying that I have everything, and there's a lot. I'm always learning new things every year from different coaches, and continuing to expand my knowledge as well. But yeah, so in regards to the podcast, I'm going to be starting that up and have more people to interview. So if anyone has people that they recommend that they want to hear, feel free to reach out to me. And then obviously, I have Instagram.
How do people reach out to you? How do they reach out to you?
Through Instagram, Coach Josh Fan. That's Coach Josh Fan on Instagram. Is where they can reach me and DM me and just reach out.
It just came to me that Fan is a Hakka last name. Yes. So you are truly a Hakka. Yeah. Fan is a Hakka.
Is that true?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, if it's not, fans will correct you.
All right. Well, before we let you go, we have to play this game. All the newcomers to LittleGuyLayup, we have to play this game called 5 for 5 plus 1. Essentially, just pick one out of two. purple and gold, pick one. Essentially, there's no right or wrong, but the intention should make you struggle.
Okay.
So if we didn't have to think more than 5 seconds, we failed.
Wait. What are the rules? I have to answer in 5 seconds.
No, I say if I didn't make you think for more than, if I didn't make you struggle for more than 5 seconds.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's meant for you. I mean, but it goes, of course, it goes from easy to like, hopefully,
Okay.
you know?
Sure.
Yeah. Fu, you want to go first?
Sure. First question is team development coach or independent trainer?
Independent trainer.
Oh. I was going to put you on the spot. I was like, oh, so you didn't like your role in Beijing?
More autonomy, more ability to scale, more ability to help impact more people. Team development, you'd only be restricted to those players on your team.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good answer. All right. Next, Fu.
Height or skill?
For what?
It's up to you.
It's height.
Which one do you like more?
Yeah,
are we talking about life? Are we talking about basketball?
Like, as a, maybe your client. Let's just say your client, right? It walks in. Do you rather him to have height or skill?
Height, because I can teach skill, but I can't teach height.
Okay. Fu, keep going.
In-season adjustment or off-season training?
Off-season training.
I guess that goes back to like the things that you could do, right? There's more you can do during off-season.
There's more you can do. Both are important. Both are required. I think that's maybe the biggest skill gap is a lot of trainers just train some player in the off season and they just never watch any of their games or spend any time with them during the in season. Well, the in season's like the most important thing. That's like the competition. That's where you see if what you did worked.
Right.
And so I think paying attention to in season adjustments is equally as important.
Okay. But you would rather do off season training because that's where
correct
you come in. Yeah. All right. My turn. Number 4. Mental or mechanical?
What was the first one?
Mental, like the psychological aspect.
Or mechanical?
Or mechanical, like like technical.
Mental.
Ooh, why?
Mechanical is a lot easier to teach and fix. Mental is like... mental is... You never know if you could potentially ever fix with somebody. Because
it's hard,
of
right?
Whether trauma... whatever limiting barriers they have, I just feel like I would rather tackle the mechanical problem than the mental problem. So
in that regard, can you tell, or is there such thing as like a clutch personality, a clutch player?
I would have to. This is an area that I've wanted to explore and learn more because I myself do not possess that quality. But I do think I think some people are predisposed to handle stressful situations. So for instance, Jeremy always lives for the big moments. Like during the big moments, he feels less nervous. I mean, he still feels nervous, but he feels less nervous. He actually feels very excited. So, and this is an observation I've made is, before game winners or things, he's very excited. He feels less pressure almost. And maybe some of that is upbringing. Maybe some of that is life experiences. I don't know. It can be a combination of a lot of factors, but I do think there is some element of people who are just more clutch.
I can share as a tennis player, it was so hard for me to play in team tennis where there's like my whole team rooting, cheering for me. I felt so much pressure. But I've been, as a tennis player, sometimes you go to some of these tournaments and you just go there by yourself and then the opponent has this hometown behind him. And when I was thinking was like, I'm going to embarrass him in front of his 2,000 fans. I think it's very, very different for everyone. I didn't feel lonely at all. I enjoyed that. And but when there was people rooting for me, I felt like I constantly worry about letting them down.
Exactly.
So that question is hard. Yeah.
Do you think it was a technical issue when you played poorly in front of your own team?
Oh, definitely not. It's definitely mental.
Exactly.
100%.
So
yeah.
There's your answer to your free throw question.
Good get back. All right. Number one, we asked this recent start. Actually, I think it's an interesting question.
Okay.
Perennial all-star with no championship rings, or multiple rings as a role player. Steve Nash versus Steve Nash versus what's that one? Kevon Looney.
Perennial role player.
I thought you just say multiple rings.
No. I was clarifying your question.
Oh. Right.
Wait, no. Sorry. You said perennial all-star or multiple rings?
No. Yeah, perennial all-star but no rings versus
okay.
role player with multiple rings. So Steve Nash versus Kevon Looney. Yeah.
Role player with multiple rings would be my choice.
Right. Yeah. Why?
Why? I just think people because you played your role to perfection and you won championships, which is the ultimate sign of team is did you enhance your team? So even though you're not the all-star of your team, you played such an effective role that allowed your team to win championships. So to me, you're as equally important as the all-star on your team. You just don't get the same recognition. But to me, that's much more valuable than just being an all-star and never winning.
Okay. I mean, there's no right answer, right? I mean, Charles.
There's a right answer.
Jordan. Yeah, there is. Okay, here we go. Okay.
Just kidding.
Okay. The plus one is the same for everyone. It's more like it's almost like a generational question now. LeBron James or Michael Jordan?
I would say Michael Jordan, but I would say LeBron James is a more skilled player.
Wait, more skilled player?
Yeah.
Oh my God. We need to start another show for another 2 hours.
Well, what I'm saying is LeBron can do many things that Jordan cannot do. Like LeBron's ability to pass, to play point guard.
Jordan played point guard for a full season.
Yeah, but I don't think he could. I don't think he could distribute the ball the same way LeBron can.
Okay.
But I would say, okay, I didn't say like by a million miles. I just said I think he's more versatile. Okay, let me let me amend my statement. I think
somebody's have broken their phones already. All right, keep going.
LeBron is a more versatile player. I think Jordan is still, in my opinion, the greatest of all time. His tenacity to win, his ability to play defense, his ability to take over his game, his ability to make everybody around him have a desire to win, and his ability to just will his way to win, I think is unmatched.
Now you're just playing it safe. Because you just stir the pot and just say, no, I'm going to take that back and say...
No, I didn't. I still made a decision. I said Michael Jordan.
Okay. All right. No, I don't think anyone will argue that LeBron is more versatile. But when you say it's more skillful, more skilled,
yeah, that's a yeah. So I would just say more versatile is the more
okay, fine. Are you gonna pay for those broken phones that people just smashed?
Paise.
That's awesome. Okay. So, Josh, thank you so much. Do you have any last words before we close?
Yeah, I do actually have some last words. I would like to say, this whole podcast, this whole interview, I've been talking about how much I've learned and all this knowledge, blah, 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 blah. But actually, the person I've learned the most about basketball from has actually been Jeremy himself. I don't think people realize how hard it is to play in the NBA and how good these players are and how much they understand the game. Like, this is what they do for their whole life. They're professional at it. LeBron James is like knows the other team's plays.
Better than their own players.
He knows where they're going to be, exactly what they're going to do. And this whole time I've been talking about myself, but actually I have to credit a lot of my development as a trainer from Jeremy teaching me a lot of the tactical portion, for Jeremy pushing me to learn more about the game, from watching film with Jeremy and Jeremy teaching me about the NBA game, and Jeremy allowing me to learn along this process with him. He could have easily found an NBA trainer and just paid the guy money and to train him, and it might have been better off, for him, like early on in his career. But so I want to make sure like people understand that this relationship I have with Jeremy isn't like 我是教练，他是 like 学生, and like it's always me teaching him. It's a very collaborative process, and I think that's the beauty of our relationship is, I'm able to see things from a skills perspective that, sometimes he's not able to see, but he understands the game at such a greater depth than I do, and pushes me to learn the game a lot more as well. And we make it's like a team. It's a team process. It's a collaborative process that allows us to keep pushing forward. Was it the most efficient way? Probably not, but that was the path that him and I chose to take, and it is what it is. And so I think, we prepared more than adequately for this next season. We added a lot of things to his game, and excited to kind of see, his performance next year, this upcoming year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the most beautiful thing I got from that podcast you did with Jeremy was that the start where you were at Boston College and he was at Harvard and you would just train for him, and the fact that you didn't know as much as obviously maybe a professional one, but he had the trust in you. He had the trust that you would learn and grow the same way that he would, right? He talked about how you can put him in an environment and give him some time. He'll be just as good as everyone else, if not better. And I think that dog mentality that you guys talked about on the show, I think, it's the reason that you're here talking about these things, to be able to share. And the same reason that Jeremy has a 9-year, and the reason that he's a 9-year vet in the NBA championship eventually, a champ eventually. And no one thought of that in the very beginning. I mean, in the beginning, we were just happy that he could make it to the league, and look how it had become. And so thank you so much, really. And thank you for being there, realizing the dreams for all the Asian Americans out there, and making the possibilities for everyone. And not only doing so, now sharing that knowledge, that experience to, the rest of the world, where not only it's a possibility, but also how to do it in steps, baby steps. Yeah.
All I ask is people who are, listening to this, if you found this somewhat helpful, or, you have anything you want to share, like, I know people are very cutchy and don't want to bother other people, but I just ask that, you reach out and say hello and just maybe share if there was any takeaways, or if you guys have any questions about what I said.
Yep. Josh, it's been a pleasure. And to say, 张来了. Am I saying it correctly?
I hope. It's your podcast.
Hey, it's your language. All right. That's it. I mean, for all the little guys, if you have any questions, of course, feedback, let us know, and let Josh know. It's really a treasure, almost. It's a hidden treasure. Shout out to Henry again for connecting us. And thank you again, Josh, and best luck to you and Jeremy.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. 各位小人物们，如果你喜欢小人物上篮，欢迎上 Facebook 或 Instagram 跟我们互动，也请帮忙分享给身边爱篮球的朋友们。 也欢迎大家成为小人物会员。如果你在台湾，可以上 Zack； 如果你在全世界其他地方的小人物，也可以上 Patreon 支持我们，让我们一起让小人物上篮继续成长。感恩啊！小人物上篮，小人物上篮。